The Johnson Institute and E. Larson Enterprises present Working a Program, How to Get Well and Stay Well, with your host, nationally known author and lecturer Ernie Larson. Remember, recovery means learning to love. And now, Ernie Larson.
Let's talk about program. What does it mean to work a program? Now, in a certain sense, of course, this is the most important topic and the most important agenda that all of us have, because all program means is practice. What we are talking about in recovery is learning new skills, rather than the old perceptions, the old definitions, and the old limitations, rather than learning that I am a caretaker and therefore my responsibility is to attract every dependent, needy person in the world toward me, and my whole role in life is to save the suffering masses. To redefine that and to have some new definitions and to have some new ways to act, it takes practice. How does anybody learn a new skill? Practice. Program is about practice. Let me share with you a definition of program. A program is a series of small behaviors that, if done consistently, creates new life options. Simple as that. It is a series of small behaviors, like learning to type, learning to play golf, learning to do anything in the world. A series of small, doable behaviors that if we know what they are, we can be consistent about practice. If we do them, obviously we have some new life options. Now I can shoot good golf where before I couldn't. Now I can cook well where before I couldn't. Now I can type where before I couldn't. Whatever it may be. Result of practice. Result of practice. Why is a program important? Because without practice there isn't any change. And if nothing changes, nothing changes. And wherever I go, there I am. With whatever skills I have. With whatever health I have. The whole point about recovery, especially recovery in relationships, it is not a matter of finding the right person. It is a matter of being the right person. And me being the right person is a matter of program. Healthy people attract healthy people. The healthier I get, the less willing I am to put up with sick, goofy stuff. Well, how do you get to where you're healthy enough that the unhealthy, the neurotic kind of behaviors in people just aren't attractive anymore? How do we get there? Practice, practice. Now let me just suggest to you kind of an interesting experiment. And after about my first, I guess, 15 years in a program, I became aware that I had no idea what a program was. Suggestion. So I started doing this. I suggested, because I had been in a 12-step program for a long time. Next time you go to group, next time you're with your 12-step people, not in a confrontive, smart-alecky kind of way, but ask somebody afterwards or over coffee, what is a program? See what they say. What is your program? See what they say. Here was my experience. Every time, every single time that I asked people that, and I did it hundreds and hundreds of times, the first question I always got was, huh? I said, well, I mean, we're here to work a program, right? Yeah. What's a program? And I always got answers like, big book. I said, yeah, I know, but what about the big book? 12 steps. Well, yeah, but what do you do with the 12 steps? Oh, you go to meetings. Yeah, but then what about the meetings? 12 steps. Yeah, but then what do you do with it? Read your big book. And went round and round and round and round. And I came to the realization or the thought that what the heck is a program? What is it for? And one of the first things that I realized was program is directly proportionate to as you define recovery. And since, as we have talked about previously, most people in program have never consciously defined recovery for themselves. Many people don't have any clear idea of why they're working a program in the first place. They know they don't hurt as badly as they did, and some of the real intense pain is no longer there. But what is the focus? What is the purpose? What is the destination, or at least the direction of my program? Interesting question. Interesting question. Go back and ask people, what is recovery? You get the same thing. Huh? So, well, program is for the sake of recovery, right? Yeah. What is recovery? Feeling better. Yeah, but how do you do that? Oh, big book. Yeah, I know that. What is recovery? Not drinking. Okay, then if you're sober, you're recovering? Well, I don't know. Well, what is recovery? Lady Nell told me one time, recovery for me is anybody hurts my feelings from now on, I'm going to grind them to powder. That's exactly what she said. That lady's husband had a great line. He said, you know, she's got a black belt in Al-Anon. That's great. He said, boy, she's tough. Maybe nobody was ever going to hurt her, but is she really recovering? Does her life have more happiness? Is she more able to listen, to share, to care, to love? She's not going to be hurt anymore, at least by other people, but will she live the rest of her life in a prison of self and not being able to share and get out to other people? What is a program for? Where does it go? Okay, 4 criteria of an effective program. And again, all it means is practice. These are 4 criteria of any effective practice program. First of all, an effective program needs to be concrete. What I mean by concrete is it needs to be nailed down to who, what, where, when. If you have a good teacher, you don't go into class and that teacher says, well, do whatever you want, I don't really care. I mean, it's not really a good class. What really are we going to do? It's nailed down. Second criteria of a healthy program is it needs to be practical. And what I mean by practical is there must be accountability. It must be real enough that I can check back and say, am I doing the behaviors that make the difference? A program that is primarily general and nebulous. As I want to suggest to you, most people that I know in program, their program is very general and very nebulous. That's why, again, it can certainly get us to a point where we're not suffering as much. But how far beyond that does it get? The third criteria of a healthy program that I think is very important is focused. A program that is not focused on specific character defects or self-defeating learned behaviors is not going to be effective. Nobody goes to the dentist and says, drill them all. Which ones hurt? I don't want you messing around with all of them. A program that is not focused on what we're trying to change simply is not going to be very effective. That's where I'm saying you ask people in program, what are you working on? Well, me. Yeah, I know, but what on you? Well, bad stuff. Well, which bad stuff? Character defects. Which ones? The bad ones. Well, which ones are the bad ones? The ones that get me in trouble. Which ones are those? I don't know. I don't want to talk to you. You're crazy. What are you working on? And again, I make a special plea from my heart, because I've been in this business, in this arena for 20 years, and working with a lot of people, working very, very, very hard, sincerely working hard, not making much progress. And I sit in the office and I say, okay, Mike or Mary or Frank or Jane or whomever, what are you working on? I say, what do you mean? I say, well, what are you trying to change? Well, me. Yeah, but what? What are you trying to change? The program is not focused. And once that program starts to really be focused in, you know, and it can change, but for right here and now, here's what I'm working on. Then they really start making some progress. It can be accountable, it can be monitorable, you really see if you're making some progress. Fourth criteria is, of course, consistent. Because what we are talking about are habits. How did we get so good at those self-defeating learned behaviors in the first place? How did we get so good at them? We practiced, and we practiced hard, and we practiced consistently. Long, long time, not knowing we're practicing. It's strange when you talk to people about program, they think they aren't working a program. All of us are working a program. Every day, we're becoming better and better at something. The question is, what are we working at? And really good people pleasers have been working a hard, intense program for a lot of years at being a good people pleaser. This program is being made in Minneapolis. In Minneapolis, we have cold, cold winters. Not long ago, I had a lady come in. She went through the whole winter with no heat. She's paying a lot of money for an apartment. So why didn't you have heat? She said, well, I didn't want to put out the maintenance man. I mean, he was busy. He had a lot of other work to do. So she went and bought 2 little electric heaters and sat in front of them all winter. She didn't want to make the guy mad. Because if he was mad, she was. And she couldn't be bad. She learned that good girls aren't bad. They don't make other people mad. Golly, she was 45 years old. Look how long and hard she practiced to be that good. She was good at it through a lot of practice. So consistently, you have to consistently work a program. Now, at our chart, I want to suggest that you cannot start a program if you don't know what you're trying to change. So I suggest on the left-hand side of your paper, there's 1 or 2 lines down here that you are going to put what you are working on. Again, a program that is not focused on what you're trying to change is not going to be effective. And this is not a week's project. It takes some time. It took me, when I finally started working a focused, intelligent program, and that was after, again, 8, 9, 10 years in the program for me, took me a solid 1.5 years of a lot of journaling and a lot of meeting with my sponsor before I had it even close to what I was supposed to work on. Here's the 4 that I finally came up with for me. Now this is my stuff, it isn't your stuff, but it's mine. And it's an example of what I found I had to work a program to change in order to at least begin to experience and to celebrate stage 2 recovery. First one for me was worry. I tend to be a wonderful worrier, and good worriers can wreck anything. Now in the beginning, I never said I was a worrier, I said I was realistic. I mean, lightning could hit. We all could be swept away in a flood. I mean, that's real stuff. Crazy kind of stuff. But until you really start working a program, our tendency is to call our worst stuff virtues. As long as you call it a virtue, you never have to change. So I finally came, again, through working with my sponsor and doing a lot of journaling, I came to understand that you are a terrible worrier. Second thing was projection. And what I mean by projection was not projecting onto other people. What I mean by projection was a state of mind that said, things are not good now, but if or when, then they will be good. If only I got my raise, it'd be wonderful. When the kids grow up and leave home, it'll be wonderful. If only George got sober, it would be great. Why doesn't that work? Because if we base our happiness on outside conditions, it means we've given up our power, and all that means is it's never going to be good. I don't know if any of you ever think about finding buried treasure. Is that a fantasy for anybody? Just read where a company found, I don't know, $40 million or $400 million worth of buried treasure. It's been a fantasy of mine all my life. My wife and I, Paula, were watching a Clint Eastwood movie one night. He was after buried Confederate gold. Wouldn't you love to go out and start digging a garden and find buried gold on it? See, God, if only that would happen, I'd be the happiest person in the world. No, you wouldn't. It wouldn't change anything. At the end of this movie, he found his gold, and he's bringing up sack after sack of this buried Confederate gold. And I was getting all excited. I said to Paula, wouldn't you love to find buried gold? And very calmly, she said, I already found my gold, and if you haven't, I really feel sorry for you. Yeah. Right on. See, what does it take? What does it take to be happy? And if it's always on outside conditions, then it's never going to happen. Now, again, I didn't call that projection. I just put that under being realistic. It doesn't work. Third thing for me that I know that I have to watch is the workaholic business. Being too busy. Craziness of the busies. Having projects and products and seminars and books and all that kind of stuff be more important than the people in my life. If I want love in my life and I want to be the kind of person that can function in a loving relationship, then I know that I have to let people count. And my tapes, my patterns, my self-defeating learned behaviors say work counts. Who's driving your bus? If I'm 45 years old and still running up the hill with 4 buckets of cement, then people are never going to count. The work is all that's going to count. And the fourth thing I found out that I really need to work at and deal with through my 12-step program and the surrounding kind of behaviors is a willingness to receive. Like most good codependents, I'm fairly good at giving. See, it's receiving that's the issue. And of course, again, we tend to call that a virtue. It doesn't have anything to do with virtue. It's a power issue. As long as I'm giving, I'm in control. As long as I'm giving, you need what I have. See, then I can put on my iron suit and be generous and magnanimous, and there's no risk, and I have what you need. But as soon as I admit that I need, then I'm putting myself in a position of being vulnerable, of taking a risk. And what most of us have learned is whenever you take a risk and are vulnerable, you're going to get creamed. So never do it. If we can't receive, the only thing left to do is to try to buy. And buying doesn't work. Oftentimes in healthy relationships, receiving is the greatest gift you can give. Admitting and accepting that I need you. Not in a dependent way, in a healthy way. You are important to me. Well, I found that those four things really got in my way of stage 2 recovery. They really got in my way in terms of enjoying life, of celebrating life, and especially of sharing and healthy, loving relationships. So, a program. Concrete, practical, focused, and consistent. Start on the left-hand side of the paper, put down, here's what I think right here and now, not 50 things, because you can't work on 50 things. But here's 1 or 2 things that are a self-defeating learned behavior that I think I need to start working on. It may mean guilt, it may mean shame, it may be a male-female dependency, it may be not able to say no, an inability to have fun, and maybe a big part of that, again, with so many of us children, adult children from alcoholic families, I don't know what fun is. Love to have. What does it feel like? Does it feel like work? What does it feel like? I don't know what it is. I'd love to have it, but where do you find it? Well, you work a program. That's how you learn. That's what a program is about. So here's some behaviors I want to suggest as far as working a program. And the idea is to fill in your blanks. So anybody who would ask you, what is your program? That you would be able to say, here it is. Here are the small behaviors that I'm doing in a manageable, accountable way, and I know if I do these, I'm going to make progress. First one, clarity of input or daily input. What do you use for daily input, and when does it happen? Daily input means books, records, tapes. It means some way that you get new data into your head. Some way that you get new ideas, a new way to think, some way to get a new perception. And the point is this. A big Western university did research, and they suggested that the average person has 120,000 thoughts a day. How does anybody know how many thoughts a person has? Well, what they did is they figured out that every time we think, which is always, the larynx moves, submicroscopic movement of the larynx. So they got their volunteers, put electric backpacks on them, and they put electrodes on their larynx, and they measured the movements. And they figured 5 words per thought, and it came up to about 120,000 thoughts a day. Now, give or take 10 or 20,000. The point is, we think a lot of thoughts. Left to our ordinary friends, our ordinary routine, the way that we ordinarily think and operate, how many of those thoughts reinforce the old stuff? How many? Probably all of them. Tons of them. And the point is, the way we think is what happens in our life. So if we do not take conscious effort to put daily input in our life, new input, and the more focused it is, the more effective it is. If you find that one of the things you have over here is male-female dependency, whichever, there are books that specifically deal with that. If you find that what you put over here I'm really working on is this male macho stuff, there's wonderful books that specifically deal with men becoming more human. If you say one of my big issues over here is dependent relationships, there's wonderful input on it. I try to have, not try, try to is lie to, but I take conscious effort every day to put specific positive mental attitude literature and tapes in my head. All right, now some of that material is not terribly deep, but it's what I need. If you find that you basically have a negative orientation, you know, towards life, life is tough and nothing's going to work and terrible luck, maybe you need some real positive input. What do you use for daily input? When do you do it? Second behavior is a sponsor. A sponsor. Someone that I meet with on a daily basis that gives accountability to my life. Okay? Lots of people in a 12-step program don't have a sponsor, and they're missing a very important element of their program of recovery. Now, a couple of criteria of a sponsor. I want to suggest that most often it should be someone of the same sex. Why do you think that's true? Yeah. It's real easy when you're meeting regularly with the sponsor and do a lot of sharing that you're going to fall in love with that person. And if you're not in a real healthy place and they aren't, pretty soon you have more troubles than what you started with. I know people that specialize in sponsoring brand new people of the opposite sex. They're just sitting at the door of the club waiting for a wounded deer to walk in. Nothing good ever comes out of that. Second criteria of a sponsor I want to suggest that is really helpful is it's not someone that is better than you, but it is someone who has a skill or a facility that you are trying to gain or to grow in. If you're passive, don't get another passive person for a sponsor. If you're a worrier, don't get another worrier for your sponsor. Talk about the fellow that's going to jump off the bridge and somebody came along and said, don't jump, let's talk. Half hour later, both went off. That can happen. So pick a sponsor who has something to share with you, who has traveled the road that you are trying to go. I have 2 men sponsors, and both of them are very good at being good to themselves. That's why I picked them. And every week I meet with one of them. And the first thing either one of them says is, what have you done for yourself this week? I say, well, oh, don't give me that. Yeah. What'd you do? Well, I got a little busy. Don't tell me busy. What do you do for yourself? What have you done to try to break these self-defeating learned behaviors? The more you know what your program is, the more you can share it with your sponsor and the more effective they can be. So a regular basis. When do you meet with your sponsor and who is your sponsor? Lots of people say, sure, I have a sponsor. What's his or her name? Well, kind of forgot. What's her telephone number? Well, they move around a lot. How often you meet with them? Well, I met with them last Christmas. Here it is, May. That isn't a sponsor. It needs to, everybody can stand to meet with their sponsor or dialogue partner, mentor, if you will, at least once a week. See, and the point is, if we're willing to do that, and it takes some new behavior, you don't just meet with them when you're in such terrible trouble and pain that you're afraid you're going to get knocked out. If you meet regularly with your sponsor, it will keep you from getting in a lot of those desperate situations in the first place. That's why you meet with your sponsor, to help give you accountability on your program. Third one, as you can see, is group. Now here's the point with group. Do you share when you get there? Do you share when you get there? There's some people that go to group, never stop talking, and they never say anything. Or they go there and they never talk. By and large, the benefit of any group we go to is the willingness that we are to share in that group. When was the last time you really took a risk? When was the last time you were vulnerable in your group? Seeing if what you say, shoot, I wouldn't share in my group. I don't trust any of those people. Then get another group. There's a lot of different kind of groups, but if the trust level is not sufficiently deep that you're going to really say something real and honest when you get there, it's not going to be very effective for you. Do you have a group that you're really sharing? Evaluation. In the 10-step program, the 12-step program, that's called the 10th step. And a program that does not have accountability and evaluation is not going to be very effective. So what I'd like to share with you with this evaluation, or the 10th step, again, when do you do it, how do you do it, is get a little piece of paper, doesn't have to be bigger than a postcard, and put on it the 1, 2, 3 things that you're trying to change. And every night before you go to bed, or whenever it's the right time, look at those and say, how did I do with this? I get urges to worry like an alcoholic gets urges to drink. And I look at that thing and I may say, I had 8 urges to worry today. Well, how'd you do with them? 6 times, no problem. Said the Serenity Prayer, called my sponsor, did something, no problem. But twice, I spent 20 minutes of my life worrying about being stuck in the snow. Now, why being stuck in the snow? Why not? As good as anything else. Spent 20 minutes of my life worrying about what are you going to do when you get to be 80 years old? Well, geez, I mean, that works. Point is this, if you didn't check that out, 3 weeks from now, when you looked at that paper and it had 6 urges on it, 3 weeks from now, how many times would those 6 urges have won? 4, 5, 6? And the real point is, another couple months down the line and you'd no longer know you had a choice. A program gives you a choice. And if we don't watch the inches, pretty soon we are a mile off base. You got to watch the inches. So evaluation, prayer and meditation. When do you do your conscious contact with God as you understand God to be? When do you do it, and how do you do it? There's a lot of ways to do prayer and meditation, but how do you do yours? Meditation is a discipline that you need to work at to be very good at it. Most people think, especially like prayer, is talking. Prayer and meditation mostly is listening. And if we aren't willing to listen to God as we understand God talk to us, we never know where we're supposed to go. So a big part of this discipline is to quiet down enough to listen. You may find that you need a special place, and that special place may not be in your home. It may be walking in a park. It may be all kinds of different places. But prayer and meditation, when do you do that? Affirmations. What is your affirmation and how do you do it? It is another form of this daily input. We are the way we think. So it is immensely helpful to get a short statement of a truth you are trying to believe, such as, I am competent. I love. A friend of mine who was not very good at hugging, he's a man. He was abandoned as a child. He's working very hard at being a good hugger, especially with his wife and child. And his affirmation is, I am the world's greatest hugger. Well, he isn't, but he's on his way. And the more he feeds that into his circuitry and the way he thinks, the better he becomes at that. Affirmations. Constant, daily working at improving my thought patterns. What is your affirmation? When do you use it? Physically, you just want to go through four arenas. Physical part of recovery is important. We live in our body. You wreck your body, where are you going to live? Wonderful line in Fiddler on the Roof. Old Tevye says a bird can marry a fish, but where are they going to live? True. If we wreck the body we live in, it's awfully tough to have decent recovery. First one is simply sleep. Do you get enough sleep? A lot of people say, I don't know why I'm tired all the time. How much sleep do you get? Oh, 3-4 hours a night. Ain't enough. Get enough sleep. Second one is exercise. What do you do for exercise on a daily basis, or at least on a regular basis? The way we sleep and the way we feel emotionally has a great deal to do with having enough exercise and enough sleep. Third one is recreation. What do you do for fun? If you're so busy recovering you don't have time for fun, you miss the point. The whole point of recovery is to be able to enjoy life. What do you do on a regular basis that is you telling you that you deserve some good stuff? It doesn't have to be food, and it doesn't have to be expensive. It may be time. Maybe every day you telling you that you are a worthwhile person and a good person is you give yourself time. Time to do 20 minutes of reading. Time to take a hot bubble bath. Time to take a walk. I'm worth it. I'm worth it. What do you do for recreation and for fun on a daily basis? And the last one, of course, is nutrition. If we do not have adequate nutrition in our body, it is as much an emotional control as it is a weight control or any other factors. We need to feed our bodies with enough material and with enough nutrients that we can function well. Do you have daily balanced meals? If you find, sure, I have a balanced meal. I have 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and I have 30 cups of coffee and 6 sweet rolls. And that's pretty balanced between those 3. Well, it isn't balanced enough to be healthy. Do you take care of yourself to have enough balanced meals and enough nutrition in your life, whether that includes supplementation or whatever, that you have enough nutrients to be healthy so that you can think and you can pray and you can deal with it? So there are some very specific behaviors that if you could write those down, and again, if somebody says, what is your program? That on a very specific way you could lay that down and say, here's what it is. It may have all of these, it may have a few of these. You may have some behaviors on your program that are not included here. Fine. But what are you doing in a concrete, practical, focused, consistent way to make some changes? We all deserve to recover. But nobody recovers without working a real program. And the question is, where is your program focused? If it's only focused on sobriety, or only focused on not being hurt, or only focused on stage 1 issues, then we never reach stage 2 recovery. and we all deserve stage 2 recovery. Thank you.
For a complete catalog of books, audio cassettes, and videotapes by Ernie Larson, please contact E. Larson Enterprises, 7549 Douglas Drive North, Minneapolis, Minnesota 55443, or call 612-560-4197.